seems.
And maybe why don't I may cover some of these things as we go through. Why don't we, if it's okay, I'll go through kind of some of these things and then we can get into questions afterwards. Because I think we do have some time. Yeah. And I guess the one other thing, and it's a little bit to your point, the manufacturing sector, after dropping down in terms of level of activity, level of employment during the recession, is really rebounding now, both in Wisconsin and in the country as a whole. And I think there are just tremendous opportunities in the manufacturing sector. I mean, a lot of manufacturers doing very cutting-edge stuff, and some people still have the sort of stereotype that manufacturing is an outmoded sector, sort of dirty and dangerous. And as most of you probably know, if you go to most manufacturing plants these days, they're very sophisticated, they're clean, they're safe, there's lots of very sophisticated technology there, and that trend is just going to continue, but it means we're going to have a very competitive manufacturing sector in this state and in this country. There's going to be opportunities there, but we need to encourage manufacturers to locate and expand here rather than in other states, and I think this credit will really help with that. The other major initiative that we had in the budget bill last year was a set of investment incentives, and I mentioned the angel investment credit that we had, that we adopted in the 03-04 legislative session, meant to encourage people to invest in startup companies. There's a lot of academic work that's been done, studies that have been done that have showed that Wisconsin has lagged a little bit behind other states in terms of the rate of creation of new businesses, and you need to constantly have new businesses being formed in order to have a healthy economy 5, 10, 20 years down the road. There's studies that show that the majority of net job growth in the country comes from new businesses. Older businesses, some are growing, some are shedding workers, but the majority of jobs created come from new businesses, and the majority of those really come from fast-growing, relatively new businesses. So we need to make sure we've got a good rate of formation of new businesses. So the angel investment credit that was created in 03-04 was meant to encourage more investment in new businesses, and it's really had a positive impact. The provisions that we passed last year were meant to continue that, and it's the most important provision is a capital gains tax provision that says if you invest money in a Wisconsin-based business starting in 2011, keep your investment for at least 5 years. At the time you sell that investment, hopefully with a gain, you won't have to pay any capital gains tax on that investment. So it's meant to encourage longer-term investments in Wisconsin-based businesses. We've had a capital gains exemption in the state for ever since the 1980s, but this increases it for Wisconsin-based businesses and for new investments in those businesses. And a companion provision says that if you have a current investment that you sell and you move the money into a Wisconsin-based business, you can defer tax on the gain on that existing investment. So it sort of eliminates the toll that we used to charge when we were moving money from one investment into a Wisconsin-based business. So those are kind of the two, the two high-profile provisions that we passed in the budget last year. They built on a few other things that were passed early in the legislative session in a special session on jobs that Governor Walker called in January of 2011. We created a state deduction for contributions to health savings accounts. This had been available at the federal level and in most other states, but not in Wisconsin, something that was very important to a lot of self-employed individuals, a lot of small business employees who elected to meet their health insurance and health care needs by setting up health savings accounts. We created a jobs tax deduction, a little bit of an extra deduction that businesses could take if they hired new workers starting in 2011. We increased the economic development tax credits that the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation can make available to businesses. And the final thing was we created a relocation credit that says that if a company hasn't done business at all in Wisconsin in the past, companies that have worked here in the past are eligible for those economic development credits, but we wanted to say if somebody hadn't done business here at all and moved here, we'd give them a 2-year holiday from corporate income taxes or pass-through taxes on business income, if that's how they pay their business taxes. So just something to try to entice businesses to move here, and they start paying sales taxes, and they start paying employees' wages, and they pay property taxes and so forth. But it's a 2-year income tax holiday.